Hello and welcome to our May webinar series. I'm your host, Eliza Buckingham with School Insurance Advisors, powered by Van Popering Insurance. We are an insurance agency that specializes in private and charter schools here in Charlotte. And I am here with Kyle Scott King. We are so lucky to have him here today. Kyle is an educator, mentor, four-time best-selling author, a public speaker, innovator, and CEO of the Shine Institute, and I'm not done yet. He is also the founder of Blueprint Conferences, which provides personal and professional development for educators. Previously served as the Dean of Students, or Dean of one of Charlotte's premier charter schools, Queen City STEM, and is the newest board member of Bonnie Cohen Classical Academy in Huntersville, which is where we are today.
I feel like you make me sound much more important than I really am. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you guys for inviting me on to talk to you today.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. We're lucky to have you. So you have a long list of accomplishments, obviously, and it's still growing, still adding on to that. And your background is intriguing, given that you have a degree in business and international business.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't start your career as an educator. So tell us a little bit more about your background and kind of how you got to where you are today.
For sure. So when I was in college, I had the opportunity of studying abroad in Ghana. So I was in Accra for about 3-4 months. And what I learned is that when we're working within the school system, it's not that students lack some fundamental or intellectual ability to learn. They just lack the fundamental resources. So I talked to my dad when I was out there and I said, hey, I want to start an international program. And he came back and said that, Kyle, our students right here in America are facing the same things. Our school systems, our teachers are under-resourced, our schools are under-resourced and under-equipped. You need to do the research here first. When I came back after my opportunity, I started volunteering within the school system. But one thing that I learned is that educators weren't the solution for the educational system. There had to be a bridge between industry and academia. Our students in our school systems didn't have the resources. They didn't have technology. They didn't have a lot of the different things. So what I did is that I needed to understand finance and where the money worked. I needed to understand international money and economics so that I can be able to be a resource and valuable for our school system right here in America. From there, we built a school. We started building programs. We started volunteering, nonprofit organizations. And that's, I guess, what has left me or gotten me to this point today.
Awesome. And how did you get involved in the charter school world?
Great question. So I moved to Charlotte a few years ago, and I needed an opportunity to being able to just volunteer. So one thing with me, I believe that stewardship, service is sovereignty. We have to be able to pass down to our students, to their children, to the next generation, a lot of the different things that we've learned, the information, the access to opportunities that we have as adults or as professionals. So I was driving on Mallard Creek Road, and I saw this school that looked like a business community. So it was like a business building, and I pulled right into the front door, and I I asked, I asked for a meeting with the principal, Ali Ozer at the time, great man. And I sat down with him. We talked for about 2 hours that day. And I walked through the school, and then I said, at the end, I was like, how can I serve your school? I told him who I was, what I wanted to do. He said, we don't have a budget. I said, I don't need a budget. Just give me a classroom. And he gave me a classroom to be able to work with the students. And I was there every single day for a year straight for free. And then a budget came and opened up for the school. And I started working within the teachers and then the students for an entrepreneurial program, then opened up an after-school program, then summer school programs. We built a curriculum, and then we opened up our own educational center about a mile or two from the school, where we started working with a lot of the other charter schools within the district. Because through my career, I worked with a lot of public schools, underrepresented Title I schools. But the beautiful thing about charter schools is that it's similar to like a doctor's office. If we were sitting here and you told me that you had a heart condition, I'm not going to send you to a family practice doctor. I hope not. I hope we have a better relationship than that. I would send you to a specialty doctor for that specialized treatment or cure that you need to be able to work specifically on what you need. That's what charter schools provide for our students. Public schools are a melting pot of different students within that community. But if you want a specialized education, if you want a specialized option, if you want a specialized opportunity to transform students, that's why I chose charter, and that's what left me and kept me in charter schools.
I love that, and I agree. I think it's so inspiring, and it's great that you had this idea. You just walked into the doors of these schools one day and you said, hey, I want to help. I have all these ideas that can really make a difference. And in public schools, it's harder for someone to do that. There's a lot of red tape. It has to go to the state. It has to be put into the curriculum that you have to follow, and they kind of have to fit into this box, where charter schools gives you that platform to come up with new ideas like this and really help the students.
And I think that's the reason why public schools are underperforming. Because of a lot of the red tape, because of the bureaucracy, because of a lot of the people in specific positions that aren't keeping the end user in mind when they're making decisions. I believe education is the only industry, and I've been afforded a lot of opportunities to work around the world. Education is the only industry where we do not keep the end user in mind. We're making decisions in these board meetings, we're making decisions in state offices, and we're not keeping in mind our teachers. We're not keeping our students in mind. We're not keeping the single mother that has to raise 3 children in mind. We're not keeping the teacher that's only working on a $36,000 salary in mind to be able to work 60 hours a week. It's ridiculous. However, with charter, we have more of a intentional but mindful approach when we're approaching how our teachers and the culture within our schools, how they feel, what are the important things that they want. We're able to sit down with our students with, I guess, lower or decreased size of classrooms. So we're able to differentiate, and we're able to consider our students and consider our teachers, as well as consider our families when we're making decisions to be able to advance our charter schools.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely. And kind of talking about the teachers and focusing on the educators, you've created a program called Blueprint Conferences. So I want to talk about that. Tell us what motivated you. Tell us a little bit about it, what it is, and what motivated you to start that.
I think it's if your phone was getting ready to die, you would probably find all of the outlets in here to be able to charge it in. But the reality of it is how would you feel if you found one of the outlets and it didn't work? You'd be frustrated.
Yes.
That's our educators within our school system. They have no charge. There's no one charging them up. They're underpaid, they're under-equipped, they're under-resourced, they're not considered in any decisions, but we're expecting them to continue to keep up with the standards, with the curriculum, with all of these different mandates that are being passed down from people that never step foot in the classrooms. So what I recognize is that I'm talking to teachers and they're asking me, whether communicating to me as an administrator, well, we don't have this, how are you expecting that? Well, we don't know this, how are you expecting that? And then they see me as an entrepreneur, but also as an educator. I'm driving the car that they aspire. I'm building homes. I'm in the community. I'm doing all these things, but I can only push people as much as I'm willing to provide for them. So how am I expecting my teachers in the classroom to produce at a high level if they're only at 20% battery life? It's kind of like they're worried about the lack of finances and when's we're getting paid only once a month, but it's only enough to be able to take care of my bills. I can't advance myself. I don't have the funds to be able to go get a master's. How are you expecting all of those different things that you want to create in the classroom if you're depleted? So what I wanted to be able to provide them is 3 things. Financial literacy training. I wanted to be able to teach them real estate, and then mental health. That's it. So I started an initiative that's called 100 Homes, 100 Educators. I wanted to put 100 educators in homes and provide them with $10,000 for a down payment on a home. Wow. Because there's no excuse why our educators aren't the representation to be able to inspire our students. Why aren't our educators have home programs? Another thing is financial literacy. There's one thing to be able to make a small amount of revenue every single month. There's another to teach them how to leverage that to build wealth. Teach them about stocks, teach them about, different investment opportunities so that when they come to school, they're not worried about when the next paycheck is coming, or they're not just here for the paycheck, they're here to be able to advance our students. And then number 3, from a mental health perspective, if I have a teacher that's depressed, suffering from anxiety, suffering from self-limiting beliefs, that's what's being poured into our students. So now how are you expecting to advance our students or get them to stop having behavioral issues, to be able to effectively communicate what their emotions are experiencing if our teachers don't know how to do it? So I wanted to be able to provide a platform for our teachers to be able to have the things that our educational system wasn't doing.
That's awesome. I feel like a lot of the focus, which rightfully so, is on the students. And that's what they're here to teach. We're here to develop our students. They're our babies. We want to grow them. But who is growing them? Who is supporting them? And I think it's super important to focus on the educator and making sure they have everything they need to be successful and pass that on to our students. So
Exactly.
that's a great program, and I love that. How can, if someone wanted to attend one of your Blueprint conferences, how can they get involved?
That's a great question. So once we had our first event, we sold out in 11 days, which was great. And then COVID hit right after as we were planning our second event. So we're gearing up because I have my own opinions in regards to virtual events. I believe the experience that we created on that first event, I believe that I wanted to recreate that experience in person. Mm-hmm. So we're actually gearing up in January of 2022.
Okay.
It will be our second event. And the goal, don't quote me, but the goal, and I know I'm on camera, is we want to be able to have it at the Spectrum Arena.
Wow.
So we're in conversations right now with some people. So that's the goal. So if we have to downsize it, we will. But it's always been my goal to be able to sell out a sports arena full of educators. I feel like the energy in the room when you go to a sports event, when you go to an NFL game,
yeah,
and everyone there is supporting what? A team or a player. Imagine if we had all of our educators together supporting each other. What would that do to our educational system?
That'd be so empowering.
So we're working on it right now. If somebody would want more information, you could just email us at k.king@theshineinstitute.com. If you want to be on the team, just find me on social media. But we have our team, and we're going to be working together to be able to make it happen.
Awesome. Well, I fully believe you're going to make it happen.
Sure.
I have no doubt.
That's the goal.
Awesome. Well, let's switch gears and talk about the Shine Institute. So the Shine Institute, where Blueprint Conferences focuses on the educator, mm-hmm. Shine Institute is focusing on the student. And it's a private online institution bridging the gap between traditional education and really teaching students leadership and empowering them to be change makers in society and leaders in the workforce. So tell us a little bit about what curriculum and programs you have in place to deliver that, and how you got started with the Shine Institute.
For sure. So the Shine Institute is essentially the for-profit arm of Project Shine. So one thing that I realized is that Project Shine was the nonprofit, and a lot of our programs were birthed from there. But from a visionary perspective and from a little selfish perspective, I didn't want to run things through a board of directors. I felt when I was running Project Shine that certain things that I wanted to do in regards to my vision had to be passed through a board. And when I kind of revamped everything and then opened up Shine Institute, I had a vision that I needed to happen for those students because I was in the classroom with these students. I was in some of these homes of these students. So Shine Institute, we focus on 3 key areas: entrepreneurship, real estate, and information technology. I believe personally, if you focus on those 3 things, that's all a kid needs to be successful. If you know how to manage your money and you know how to understand investments and economics, if you understand problem solving and how to build a business or how businesses work, and if you understand technology and why it's so important right now, you could go into any career, you can consult with any business, and you could be successful. There's a difference between teaching a student 2 + 2 = 4 and then being able to have them understand why that is. It's a difference between teaching a student a math problem or geometry or understanding how you use the same mathematical equations to understand why the stock market crashed in 2008. It's a difference. It's all math. It's all a little bit of problem solving. It's all a little bit of learning, and it's a lot of technology.
Yeah.
So what we did is that we built out, in just my experience with entrepreneurship, I wanted to be able to provide them how to build a business, how to start, how to scale, how to take care of your family. So our students come through the programs and they own businesses, 13, 14 years old, 12-year-olds starting businesses. I have a student in my program that retired his mom from her business because he's generating enough money where now she manages his business. So from an information technology perspective, we're teaching our students how to code, how to hack into computers. It's not necessarily about learning all of this theory. It's about how do you apply that to real life application. So we're bringing in computer programs from Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Aegis Technologies from Huntersville, Alabama, all of these different companies to work with our students on a real-time basis. And then from a financial literacy perspective, I have some of the best financial advisors or financial coaches or different people in the financial industry, bankers, investment bankers, all these different people that are investing into our students. So I took the same model from Project Shine how we were bridging the gap, and we just created curriculums and programs to be able to advance our students. So our Operation CEO program is one of the best on the market, because we're not just training students about social studies or science, we're applying all of those different things to be able to help them advance in their lives. If you think of STEM education as a whole, everything that we do is STEM. From designing sneakers to building buildings to opening up a restaurant. There's science, there's technology, there's engineering and mathematics to everything that we do, but our students have to see it in real time in their lives.
Mm-hmm. I think too, if students can connect of how that applies in the real world, they're more excited to learn about it.
Exactly.
Where, of course, everyone sits in the classroom like, when am I going to use this in the real world, teacher? People say that. I remember saying that when I was in school. But if they can see real world examples of how they can use it, how this applies to a business they're apparently starting at 13 years old, then it's so much more impactful.
The challenge is that, if you look 20 years ago, we could fix a whole house with probably a hammer, a wrench, some nails, and probably a ruler or a tape measure. Mm-hmm. If you use those same tools with our kids today and an iPhone, you can't fix your iPhone with that. So the challenge is that we're using the same tools. Our educational system is trying to use the same tools that worked 20 years ago in 2021. Mm-hmm. That's why the problems aren't being fixed. We need new tools. We don't need better programs. We need better people. To be able to have better people, we need better training, we need better education, and we need to better integrate a lot of the things that our students want, not just the people that are making the decisions want.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that, obviously technology is so important, and like you were just saying, do you think there's any pushback from school administrators to implement technology into the curriculum?
I do, because there's just a lack of understanding. If you think about it, the educational system hasn't moved as quickly as the industry has moved, and that's the challenge. Mm-hmm. So when the industry is constantly moving, now we're in, we have Dogecoin, we have cryptocurrency, we have Bitcoin, we have new currencies. Are our students learning that in the classroom? Are our students using their iPhones in the classroom? If you break down the importance of TikTok and how you could literally build a whole business with TikTok, why aren't we using the algorithms of TikTok? Why aren't our students learning the Instagram algorithms to be able to grow a brand? You talk about, as a school, you have enrollment issues, but you have a student in your classroom that is a social media influencer. You don't have enrollment issues. You just haven't integrated the two together. That's the challenge. Mm-hmm. So our students have real deal gifts in our classrooms, but we don't talk to them, but we have real deal issues as a school. So there's a lot of pushback because there's a lack of understanding. There's a lot of pushback because we're still using tools that or learning from textbooks that are outdated. There's a lot of pushback because the industry no longer needs what the educational system taught 20 years ago. We need new curriculums, we need new models, we need new people in these new positions to be able to advance our students.
Absolutely, I agree.
Hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Okay. And so with charter schools, and we kind of mentioned, charter school leaders they have the ability to implement some of these changes in their curriculum now. They don't have to wait for the red tape and the government to make decisions and all of these things. So what are some ways that charter school leaders can maybe implement some of these ideas or programs into their schools for their students?
My first thing would be ask the students, ask the question. I believe that a lot of our educators, a lot of people in general, are so focused on finding the answer in books and on Google instead of just asking the people in your building what they want. So I did a training with a group of educators a few weeks ago, and I literally gave a professional development, but through the conversation, I asked them questions. What are some of the things that you're struggling with? In a perfect scenario, what would make a great school? Talking to the students, asking them the same questions. What are some things that you want? The challenge is that, let's say we were in a dating relationship, two people, and you wanted one thing and I wanted another, and we weren't communicating together. What would happen? We would probably have conflict. We'd probably break up. That's what's happening all the time in our school systems. The teachers aren't talking to the administrators aren't talking to the parents aren't talking to the students aren't talking to the educators. So if as an educator, if my expectation in the classroom is you sit down, you shut up, and you are ready to learn, but the kids' expectation is that we're having fun, we're doing projects, and our teacher is cool, there's a disconnect. Mm-hmm. We have to be able and willing to ask the question, but first be able to receive the answer. Once we ask the question, we receive the answer. Now you have to ask not how do we get this done, who do we need? It's not about who, it's about how. Who do we need to be able to assist us in this? They may not be in the actual classroom. They may not be in your school building. So that's why then you have to reach out to your local community. Who are the leaders that are doing the things that our teachers need? Then identify resources. Is this financial? Is this an email that needs to get sent out? Is this an event that we need to have? And then reach out to those people who can be able to provide us with those resources. That's your game plan right there.
I like it. I like it. And I think it's definitely important to have the right leadership in place that, like you said, is willing to accept that.
Exactly.
Get the feedback from your staff, but then be able to implement that feedback, those changes, and find the resources like you were talking about to make it happen. If they can't do it themselves, reach out to someone like you who can help them do it. So along with the students and making impacts on them, what can school leaders do to continue to empower their educators and their staff?
That's a great question. I was looking at something, I Googled something a few weeks ago, and I typed in, I was like, how do you help teachers, like, how do you create a culture within your school? And all these things came up. Buy them donuts, and buy them this, and buy them gift cards, and buy them pencils. And I'm like, what? This is it? So when you think about it, if we were getting ready to cook dinner, the eggs are probably the most critical condition, right? Because if you don't have eggs in a cake, it's not going to rise. If you don't have eggs and macaroni and cheese, it's not going to come together. There's an ingredient that's missing in a lot of schools, and it's culture. If you can establish a culture within your school, a culture in your school, hip hop is a culture. At the end of the day, sports, there's a culture to sports. Mm-hmm. There's a culture in everything. If we look at politics, there's certain cultures in different things. I'm not talking black, white. I'm not talking, socioeconomic status. I'm not talking about that. If you can establish a culture in your school, I believe the resources will come, the academic success will come, and everything that you need to be able to create as a leader will come. So how can leaders assist or develop amazing schools? They have to develop a culture that is conducive and inclusive with the actual community of students, teachers, and parents that attend that school.
And how do you do that?
That is a great question. That's the $1 million question right there.
I think businesses too. I mean, businesses, corporations, they want to recruit talent, and so they a lot of times are recruiting these college graduates and professionals by saying, hey, our business has a great culture. I think every business and school, which are businesses, strive to have a good culture. And I know that's a very open-ended question. How do you create that? But for schools, I think that is really important.
I think in my advice, this is the challenge. So there's two ways of looking at this. You can look at it as a way of we're going to establish a culture, and we're only going to recruit the students that meet that culture, and they're going to have to adopt that culture. That's one way of looking at it. There's another way where we're going to constantly shift and transform and transition our culture dependent on who's in the building. That's the more flexible way. Mm-hmm. There's two types of people. There's a type of person that goes into Ruth Chris, and there's a type of person that probably goes into Outback Steakhouse, right? When you think of those two places, Ruth Chris probably has never changed their menu, probably added one or two things. Outback constantly changes their menu. Why? Because the demographic of person changes. School systems have to understand that approach as well. When you think about it, do you want to constantly change your culture because of the students? Or do you want to be like a Rolls Royce? Do you want to be like a Lamborghini dealership where we're only recruiting, we're only marketing, and all of our messaging and our uniforms and everything, the teachers that we bring in, the administrators that we have, embody the culture that this school represents? A lot of educators or administrators don't understand. Mm-hmm. They say your culture is not a mission statement. Your culture is not a vision statement. Your culture is the teachers that you hire, the things that you wear, the uniforms, the students that you recruit, the curriculum, the parents that attend that school. If you think of a Providence Day, if you think of a Harlem Children's Zone in Brooklyn, New York, they have a culture. There's a certain culture of student and person that goes to those schools. You have to ask yourself, what's the culture of your school? And does it really align with the students, the teachers, and all of the policies and procedures that align with what you actually see every day in that school? That's what I would recommend. That's where I would start.
Yeah, good starting
For sure.
point, for sure. Yeah, take a long a lot of steps to get there, I
Yeah.
think, but it's important for educators and leadership to kind of sit down and take a look at that and say, what's our culture now, and then where do we want to go?
Exactly.
Where do we want to take it? How can we improve?
Exactly.
So I think that's really important. Well, we really appreciate your insight here and your impact that you're having on charter schools and education in our community, and we're lucky to have you.
Thank you.
If anybody wants to, we talked about the Blueprint conferences, but Shine Institute, how can students get involved in that? How can someone contact you?
I think the best way to find me now is through LinkedIn. So
Okay.
Kyle S. King. And that would be the one centralized place that you can learn more about me, our programs, our businesses, and then all of my profiles are on there. So LinkedIn would be the #1 place. So Kyle S. King.
Awesome. Will do. Well, thank you so much for joining us this month, and we'll see you next time.